You're listening to another great podcast in the MyMac Podcasting Network.
News, security stories, technology, and all sorts of other related chit-chat catches our attention. Welcome to the Essential Apple Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Well, this week, Google explained why they didn't release a 5G Pixel 4. It appears apparently that Pebble watches are getting a second life, courtesy of the Rebble Alliance. Ho, ho, ho. Apple say that half of iPhones have made it to iOS 13 already. But star of the show this week, we are joined by Alex Tsepko of Skylum, of course, and he's going to talk to me about what's going on with Skylum in general, the forthcoming Luminar 4, and all that sort of good stuff. So, welcome back to the show, Alex.
It's good to be with you again, Simon. Thanks a lot.
And no thanks,
Great.
apparently, no thanks, according to what you said before the show, no thanks to the Ukrainian ISPs.
Yeah, it's one of those days when I spend about I'd say 100 days in Ukraine, and the rest is traveling, so I don't see my family often, and apparently I don't pay my internet bills that often, so they just cut me down. So
Yeah,
I'm on my mobile connection right now.
That
And-
tends to happen, you know. If you don't pay the bills, they tend to cut you off. You know, that's how it works.
That's how it works. That's how it works.
Well, let's
And
hope.
I have to discover this the hard way.
Oh well, oh dear. Okay, well, let's hope the 3G holds up for you. And
Yes.
we'll think. So obviously, the biggest thing, Alex, is of course you've been teasing, I guess, with, on Twitter and elsewhere. You've been teasing us for a while now with what's coming in Luminar 4. We've seen the AI Sky replacement, and there's been stuff, of course, about the new machine learning enhanced structure tool, which
plus the portrait tools.
and yes, I was
some
going to
other
say, and of course, there's a whole load of tools for portrait. So, I guess really the first thing I'm going to ask you is, would you like to tell us about what's coming in Luminar 4?
Absolutely, sure. It's interesting. Then historically, when we were planning and working on new versions of the software, any software, not just Luminar, we were mostly focusing on the features, because features and new tools and new stuff is what interests photographers. And when you work on a new product, everyone is actually interested to hear what new features and tools are coming. What's interesting in Luminar, especially in Luminar 4, is that it is of course about the tools, and we can talk about them. And from what we hear from early beta testers and people who are testing it, the feedback is I'd say much better than we expected. We were still hoping we always hope to get a great feedback, but because Luminar never had portrait tools, or sky replacement is a very is something that people like to argue about. But in reality, if we look at Luminar 4, it's not just about the tools. It's actually about the approach to photo editing in general, and this what excites me most, because the tools, we've presented three new features, and there will be some more with the first version of Luminar 4. But in reality, what excites me most is how we reimagined the approach to photo editing in general with this particular tool. And by that I mean that Luminar is making a turn not to be a tool-based photo editor like everyone else. It's more of about a purpose-based photo software that speaks the language, the human language. And I'm not sure if you've seen the version 4 yet or not, but there will be new things around interface. tools, and the whole the whole architecture of the software is different, and it looks new when you launch it first, but then after 5 minutes it looks very it's much more comfortable to work in the software, because it's more about the purpose of making great images. And you'll see, it's like, instead of just having a person face all this traditional tools like contrast and shadows and highlights and everything, we've grouped them by the purpose. And now if you want to enhance an image, you go to AI enhance. If you want to enhance a landscape, you go to landscape enhancer section. If you want to work on a portrait, you go to and you work with portraits. And it's much more intuitive right now. And we got rid of several older filters in favor of this new of this new user experience. And we will continue to actually evolve as a purpose-based photo editor that's a lot about content aware editing, where the software will automate a lot of tasks, because it will know what is on the image, and it will allow a person to actually focus on the process, to focus on getting the look they want, and getting a feeling to the image that they want, instead of just spending time on selections and masking and layering and all sorts of things that are important to get a final result, but can be luckily can be automated with the help of artificial intelligence.
No, no, I have to admit, I'm not on the Luminar beta, to be honest. But that sounds really interesting. So would you say the point of that really is to make the process of enhancing your photographs? I'm not going to say editing, because actually I get the feeling that actually you're trying to move away from that. It's becoming much less technical, at least for the user, so that you're
correct.
You're working. Would I be saying a bit like when we had Adobe on talking about elements? They were very much. They were very. No, I'm not going to compare you there, but I'm saying they were very much working towards what's the word I'm looking for? Like simplifying the user experience for non-technical users.
Yeah, I it is about simplifying it. Well, the way we look at Luminar right now is it's a tool in itself. It's a photo software, photo editing and photo enhancing software that's basically consists of three main elements. And the first element is it gives you superpowers to simplify complex stuff like masking and precise selections and object recognition and layering and all those sort of things. So now people who are afraid of Photoshop or other software, or who are afraid of editing or advanced editing in particular, because it requires all these selections and masking, they get these superpowers with Luminar. And if they want to enhance eyes in a portrait, for example, they don't have to select eyes or whatever. They can just move a slider and make eyes look better. Or same go with lips and everything. So the first element is actually simplifying, like you said, complex stuff. And this is the first element. The second element about Luminar 4 and the new philosophy that we are pushing is about creative filters. And it's not about traditional stuff like contrast or clarity or whatever. It's about these new creative filters that allow you to give your photography a look and feel that you want and be more unique about what you're giving. And those and we've got a number of again, sky replacement is part of it. We've got like new color styles and mate look and all sorts of other things. So it will be about not just traditional edits or enhancements, those will, but the second element is about giving you more creative filters and creative powers, so you can come with something special, come up with something unique.
Yeah.
And the third element is simple. We really want people to have fun with Luminar, and the process itself should be enjoyable and fun. and we are testing this different hypothesis. But before we started developing Luminar 4, we had this insight from quite a big number of customers, and not just our customers, but customers of other software who have never seen Luminar. We spoke with people who have digital cameras or shoot with an iPhone, and the first question that we asked was about editing images. And it was surprising that so many people who take photos on regular basis, they don't actually edit. And the reason why they don't edit is because when they open a photo editing software, at the very beginning, you don't really know what to do with the contrast or highlights and shadows, and you have to learn it. And for many people, it's easier and faster to learn about composition and then put your camera on aperture priority and then learn some basics and start shooting instead of just investing hours and hours and hours of time into learning. And we definitely have people who edit a lot and know everything, but surprisingly, a lot of people are afraid of photo editors because they have just become too cluttered and too technical and I'd say too manual even in some way. So basically, superpowers to make complex things easier, then creative tools, creative filters, and then pure enjoyment. So these are three elements that we are putting into this new philosophy and Luminar 4. And if you want to compare this to something, I like to compare it to the times when car companies started to introduce automated transmission to attract more people to enjoy the ride and enjoy the drive. So it's not about a specific piece of software that we can compare Luminar 4 to, but it's rather than imagine a lot of people would love to drive a car, but they're just afraid of manual transmission. Yeah. And in our case, you still have the steering wheel, you have all sorts of other things, and you can enjoy the ride, but then a complex manual process is automated. And then still, it's not about automating the creativity. It's not about forcing you to choose looks that AI has developed for you. You have all that freedom, but the manual stuff is automated, and we are moving to the direction where we just will take that complexity and that manual stuff out of the play, but we'll add more creative tools and more fun to the process.
Well, yeah, that's excellent. I mean, yeah, when I mentioned elements, I wasn't attempting to compare the products, more the philosophy, because what they were again, what they said to on that show was very much the same thing, that with smartphones being so ubiquitous, everybody is taking photographs, but from their research, the same thing came out, that a large percentage of people were doing nothing with their photographs at all. And so they wanted, to move elements and, philosophically in the same way as you're saying, to encourage people to, to feel not only encouraged to do so, but that they don't have to worry about all these, technical aspects. Because,
correct.
I've been using Photoshop pretty much as long as there was Photoshop. But so, I've learned it as it went along, over 30 years or something. But if you're a new user, if you open a product like Photoshop, and you don't know what all those weird and wonderful symbols are, it is the most frightening interface. There's all these, and also, of course, in that, if I call it traditional workspace, you have to understand, to some extent, what all those icons mean, and most of those, of course, represent analog processes. Now, when I started using Photoshop, I knew what a lot of those tools were because I'd worked on, photographs in the analog age. But I mean, if you present that to someone like my daughter, who's 15, she doesn't know what any of those tools are for. She's
true.
She has got into photography. She's got a Canon, digital SLR, and she's got her iPhone. And yeah, she not only does she have a good eye for taking a photograph, but she has no idea how to tackle something like Photoshop. So
And
when
imagine like when she most like, and I'm just like her in a way, and many other people, and it's more about when you take a photo, you're not thinking about the tools that you will be using to make that photo, a good one. You're probably thinking about the moment. You're thinking about the look, and then it's not about not about the sliders, not about the process. It's more about the end result. So in our case, that's the whole idea why we have updated and changed even the look of the user interface, is because when you open it, it will speak. It will be basically, we hope, and we want to make it a natural extension of your brain's creative process. But jumping back to, it's funny that you mentioned Photoshop elements, because they're definitely, with Luminar, it seems like we are somewhere competitive with Adobe Elements, because we have a lot of beginners who adapt the software. Then at the same time, we get a growing number of real estate or wedding photographers who use us because of the automation and the speed. And funny enough, about 60% of customers right now use Luminar as a plugin for Lightroom and Photoshop. And we love this fact. And I personally am a big fan of Adobe. It's one of three, four companies that I follow regularly and see what they're doing. And I love the philosophy and how dynamic they are, and so on and so forth. And it's maybe because we, in our marketing, we communicated, to some people we look similar to, in terms of the philosophy, to Photoshop elements, or even Photoshop, where it is going. Adobe didn't let us be at Adobe Max next month. And it's interesting. We wanted to show the plugin. They approved us. We got the boost nailed down. We got everything approved, and it's just. Literally just last week we got a note that we can't be at Adobe Max because we are too competitive.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how to. Well, we thought that we will continue to work closely with Adobe ecosystem, and working with everyone who use Lightroom or Photoshop and use Luminar as a plugin. But that was interesting, because maybe the way we talk and the way we build the product and the philosophy that we are trying to push to the masses now, this new sort of a new philosophy for us, a new philosophy around Luminar and everything, it looks competitive. So there are familiarities for sure.
Well, I mean, my as I say, my daughter wouldn't even know what tool was what in Photoshop. So obviously, all photographers will tell you you aim to get as good a shot with the camera as you can.
Right, straight from.
It's better to get a great shot, and then maybe only have to do a tiny amount of adjustment.
Right.
You can't fix a bad photograph, no matter how wonderful the software is.
No.
But that said, when she came to me and said, "Well, I've taken this photograph, Dad, and I want to. It's really great, but maybe I've underexposed it a little, or whatever. What's the best thing to use?" And I said to her, "Well, I'm gonna, open Luminar on the Mac, because that we've got Luminar. You can go in there and you can just play, because you've got all those, all the Luminar 3, obviously, and you just play, and you've got those lovely that kind of sliding effect thing that you can see before and after, and you can move it across, and of course that just felt, she took to that like a duck to water, because you didn't have to start worrying, as you say, about masks and selections and things. She could just get the effects she wanted very simply. So I will be looking forward to seeing what's in Luminar 4, and I think she will be as well.
We definitely need to get you an early version. It's we are in the final stage where we just fixing bugs and improving performance, but the version has everything that will have when it is launched. So yeah,
Okay.
I'll make myself a note and make sure that we get you an
Okay.
early version.
Thank
You'll
you.
see.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
yeah, it will probably be my daughter who's the first one on that. But no,
Oh,
thank you very much.
I'd love to hear her feedback because this is the thing that we the thing that we are mostly missing right now is that um, people. I mean, again, Luminar will be very helpful to everyone who has ever edited anything in any software. It's easy. It's something new, but it will be easy to understand the value. What is challenging is to actually convince people who are very opposed to editing, or even I'd say opposed to getting into learning the editing tools and techniques. It will be interesting to see how we can win the hearts and minds of these people, because this is the whole idea. This is how this is why we want to launch Luminar on iPad next year and go become also sort of a mobile plus desktop platform. Is because, again, people say and numbers say that digital camera sales are going down. That's you can't argue with that. But then more and more people still take photos with all sorts of different devices. And it's a pity that a lot of those photos just stay untouched, being raw or just unedited JPEGs, just because people feel like it's the process of editing is too complex, requires additional learning, and they just can't can't spend a lot of time on that. And I feel like the future of Skylum growth is in making people who currently edit and enhance their images happy, for sure, and also about bringing more people to actually working on their images,
Yeah.
because no matter how hard you try, even the best camera in the world is not able to capture it in the way your eye see
No,
that.
that is
You'll
true.
still need to make some tweaks. Well, except for the iPhone 11. I
Yeah.
haven't tried it yet, but the photos I've seen is oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But hey, but the interesting thing is that everything they do with the software, and they use a lot of
Oh yeah, it's
content
very
aware
very much
technology.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
very much
it's
computational, isn't it? There's
computational. Yeah, it's computational, and this is what we are where we are going with Luminar. There's a lot of computational stuff with accent AI and then AI structure and then portrait tools. And there's nothing to be afraid of. It's actually it helps you be more efficient as an artist. So you can focus on the look and feel and creativity. And I
yeah.
think that this is the right approach.
I think very much so, Alex. I think that's perhaps I should call that image enhancement for the rest of us. To I think somebody might have said something like that, similar to that before.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Right. Okay.
yeah, I feel it's and it's not just about the photography. As I again, this is maybe it will be too weird. It will sound too weird from a 35-year-old one. But as I grow older and have two kids and work more and more every day, time is what I value most. So every time I get a chance to spend it with my family or friends, I feel. I feel happy. And for me, Luminar is a tool. The way I see it, the way our team sees it, is that this is a tool that will just eliminate the need to spend time on extra stuff, and it will allow it will bring more free time to artists, and also will give them more time to be creative and play with to play with different tools to actually express their creative vision. And for us, this is very, very important.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to that then. Now there is a slightly thorny issue, Alex, which I'm going to have to bring up. And I know, obviously, last time you were on the show, we were talking very much about the kind of Lightroom replacement, digital asset management and the like. And several of my listeners have said to me that they're a little disappointed, or perhaps they've put it stronger than that's not
Yeah.
progressed. As quickly or as far as they'd hoped.
Mhm.
Can you offer them a bit of hope on that front?
Um, Absolutely, and it's it's interesting. Then when we talk about Lightroom replacement or any other or replacement of any other tool or a library module in particular, it's the question is really tricky because first many people treat when different people say digital asset management, a lot of them just mean very different things. And what we have also discovered is that when we started interviewing people who are not that active in social media or forums or blogs about what they need, uh, those needs, when we talk about the library, those needs are very much different from from the needs of people that comment on different forums and blogs and stuff like that. So there's an array of feedback and needs related to digital asset management that we need to digest and actually understand what we want to build and add. But what we have, so the first thing is that with the launch of Luminar 4, we will continue to support Luminar 3 for people who are using it and don't upgrade. And the next spring, there is a plan to roll out the key missing features like search and IPTC data support. And so that's coming in both Luminar 3 and Luminar 4. The challenge is that a lot of people it's almost like a lot of companies use AI in their marketing just for the sake of using the word AI. A lot of photographers would just say that they need a Lightroom replacement, but will never switch to from Lightroom because they have years and for photos invested into that, and it's just it's a good it's a good thing to hate someone together. Like we hate subscription, so we'll just switch when time comes. But what we see is that if we build a total clone of Lightroom, no one very few people will actually switch. And
No.
it just doesn't make sense. The way we look at Luminar right now is that the tool should bring an absolute value to the majority of photographers. And by value, we mean that we definitely need to bring new tools and new approaches and new user experience that is different from Lightroom and different from Photoshop. And then basically that if we start chasing and start adding features that already exist in Luminar or in Lightroom, we will be out of business very quickly because Lightroom will continue. We will always be that number two. We will always be that number two or number three who is chasing and just trying to copy the leader. So in our case, to grow faster and appeal to more photographers, we should actually be doing something different and eventually get to the point where Adobe and other companies try to add the tools that we've added and features that we have introduced, rather than just trying to copy them all the time.
Oh,
for us, this is this is not the scenario where we are going. So to make the long story short, we see that in terms of library and working with images and managing the images and organizing them in a proper way, IPTC data and search and keywords are definitely important, and that's coming to both Luminar 4 and Luminar 3. So we're not abandoning this in any way. That's coming in 2020, and the reason we made the decision to postpone that intentionally because we clearly knew that if we introduce these features, it's just nothing innovative, nothing new, nothing valuable. So we decided to focus on these new features like portrait enhancing, sky replacement, and structure, and some other tools. We launched them. Then we have some more cool tools in the development that will be launched over the course of winter, and they will be bringing much more value to people who either use Luminar as a standalone tool or as a plugin. They will be so photographers will get much more from these tools for their photography and for their creativity than with IPTC data, for example. A mistake that we made, and I'm admitting again. As a CEO, every mistake of a company, every drawback of a business
ends up on your desk.
Correct. Yeah. Success is a team success. So it's so in terms of in terms of the mistake that we made, it was definitely, and the lesson that we learned is that we shouldn't have promised as many things and making so many bold statements. It's when the company is young and growing, it's easy to get into the trap of big statements and run around and yell about something.
Mm-hmm.
But as we are more mature and we get to millions and millions of photographers who use Luminar around the world, we now understand that it's much better to under promise and over deliver
Yeah, I
and
was going to
surprise
say
people and keep
that's
them happy.
yeah.
Yeah, rather than just over promise and then under deliver. We've made these mistakes. We faced that situation last year. We got through it somehow, and then now it's mostly about uh, bringing the value and at the same time being, I'd say, more modest on what we're
Yeah.
bringing. So it's things
No,
like that.
that's fine. That's fine. They always say it takes a big man to admit his mistakes. So, and just moving back slightly to the digital asset management,
Mhm.
most of the people who I've spoken to, and many of them, it's not so much that they wish to replace Lightroom wholesale. It's not like
Mhm.
they want to switch out. What they are looking forward to, and felt that you'd promised them was the ability to transition, particularly their libraries away from Lightroom and into Luminar as a way of managing their photographs. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, the things you're talking about, obviously, adding in 2020 are very much the sort of things that they're looking for: the ability to search, the ability to have the data, the metadata, and so on. So I think that will, hopefully cheer them up.
Yeah, and we are
And
already working.
I think we all understand, obviously, that as a company, Skylum's job is to grow and to move forward. And as you say, new appealing features will attract more
Yeah.
new users than, as fabulous as it might be. Now with structured digital asset management is not exactly the sexiest selling line in the world, is it?
and
It's not
and it's
doesn't
like
doesn't grab headlines really.
it's and if you look at if you compare our industry to sports, for example, when there's a race, be it a car race or sailing or bicycle race, anything, there are two very clear strategies: the leading, the first place strategy, and the strategy of those who follow. So the idea is that when the first place, the first in the race, be it whoever that is, they should not invent things or actively should not actively innovate, should not do something different. They should just, in most cases, the number one should just keep the distance between number two and basically repeat anything that they are doing. So keep the same speed, make those turns the same way, or everything. So they just can keep the status quo and not let number two, three, or four
Yeah, to catch up and
get
overtake
get
them. Yeah,
catch up. So the strategy for the second one is different. If they just do whatever the leader is doing, they'll keep that status quo, and it doesn't work. So the second place, what they do is they try to be as creative, as innovative as possible, and they need to invent and risk bigger, invent new things, and always come up with some moves and strategies and turns that will trick the first to make this distance shorter. So this is again, this enlightenment has come to us. I just recently. Again, we're still learning. We're a small company, and we have a big ambition. We want to make Luminar uh, the most popular tool for artists, for digital artists on mobile or desktop. We really want digital artists to enjoy the process of editing and enhancing photos, and we want to be a globally world popular platform. And
yeah,
for that, the ambition is very big. So we can't just copy other tools,
no,
we need to innovate. So that's the whole idea. We need to come with something that will blow people's minds.
Yeah.
And this is that's the whole idea.
There you go. You want to become the world's, photo enhancer of choice. That's
Would love that. Yeah. And it's we are now looking at, we look at photography a little bit differently right now, and photo editing in general. It seems like it's when you look what photos iPhone can create, and hopefully digital cameras will catch up. The gear, the photo iPhone can enhance photos itself. So actually, if you are just talking, and digital cameras will most probably catch up and do some enhancements inside the camera as well. And it seems like just regular traditional photo software that just enhances the raw files and etc., will be losing the popularity, losing losing, I would say, the market in terms of market share, because the cameras will be doing so much more. So in our case, when we look at Luminar, again, just as I told you, we are looking at giving photographers more superpowers to automate and simplify complex stuff. And then we are constantly looking for these new, interesting, creative tools that will go beyond traditional enhancement, because there's a big chance that a year from now, 2 years from now, most of the photographers won't really need to even do these basic adjustments and basic enhancements, because everything will be either done straight in the camera or automatically stored in a raw file, and then you just need to tweak it a little bit. So basic enhancements itself is something that I know for sure a lot of mobile companies are trying to do right in their device. And this is the hardware companies, they're actually killing software slowly, but with a big confidence, because a lot of them inside the device itself. So for looking to bring some tools that will not be or some opportunities to customers that are not possible either in the device itself, or definitely not possible with other software.
Yeah. Well, that's very good. And I mean, you mentioned earlier as a sort of an analogy, automatic transmission. As cameras and phones get ever better and add ever more computational photography, enhancement, it's a bit like, nobody has to double declutch anymore. Everybody, we went from double declutching to synchro mesh gearboxes to, semi-automatic to full automatic. And there you go. So that is very true. I think you're very wise there to be aware that a certain level of what you might call basic photo, editing or enhancement is likely to become almost redundant, because the hardware will do an awful lot of that, at least for a large percentage of people taking photographs.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's Luminar. Of course, Luminar isn't your only product, is it? You have Aurora. Is anything on the horizon with Aurora, or is that has that taken a slight backseat to Luminar 4? Obviously, Aurora got a big update last year, so it wouldn't be. I don't think anybody would feel cheated.
Well, we've just released a performance update and Catalina update for Mac users for Aurora as well, just boosting some of the performance and fixing bugs. But it's interesting that you mentioned Aurora. Aurora is its position is very interesting, because for real estate photographers and people who still shoot brackets, this is already a tool of choice for the majority. And in terms of this, I'd say traditional HDR photography approach, where you take photos of multiple exposures and then you merge them together, Aurora is there for quite a long number, for quite a lot of people. We are currently, at this point, everything we do is around Luminar, and because we want to bring all that, we want to actually turn our ambitions and plans into reality. So these are not just dreams that we're discussing with you today, and that's a reality. So every single effort is put towards Luminar. But with Aurora and the launch of this Luminar 4, with Aurora, it's interesting because we are still discussing whether in the long run, not immediately, but we love a lot of features about Aurora, and we love a lot of tools, and we are still thinking whether Aurora should just be a plugin for Luminar, whether we should continue developing it as a standalone software. But interestingly, with Aurora, and we can continue updating it on regular basis, but the software has so much to offer in terms of the HDR workflow and HDR image editing that it's the new features that we may invent will just be competitive with Luminar. And it's because when you talk about creating a great looking HDR image, or Aurora, Aurora may be missing some of the there are some bugs in the performance on PCs, and that's we will definitely fix that. But in terms of adding new tools, it's almost like what else should we add to?
Yeah,
There
comes a point. There comes a point of diminishing returns, as it were. There's not much more to be done.
We can. There are some software providers out there. We can. Who add new presets every single update, or just add AI to the name of the tool, and it's almost like cheating for us. You can create presets and just add them to the software. So we shouldn't call it like a new version. So with Aurora, we'll most likely will release several performance updates to make sure that the performance is smooth. We'll fix some of the critical bugs, but that's all after Luminar 4 launch, and drop Aurora HDR. Drop 2019 from the name of it, so it's just Aurora HDR, and then see what's next, because it's not like with Luminar, right? When we need to work on the library and make it and deliver on our promise, or add new AI tools for single image editing and new creative tools. With Aurora, it's a very complete piece of software. And interesting enough, we ran a little survey inside Skylum among our engineers, among the development team, to actually to ask them what is their favorite piece of software. And Aurora was the one that most people love most. It's like Luminar is a strong number 2, and it's Luminar 4 is getting a lot of support and people love it. But for people who develop Luminar, for people who just who have been working for us for a long, Aurora, they feel like Aurora is the most complete product we've ever released. It has everything a photographer may need for HDR image creation, and we all understand that with Luminar, with the current Luminar 3, and with there's still a lot of things that we want to add to make Luminar a complete all-in-one solution, and that includes mobile experience and library and new creative tools and more.
Okay.
But with Aurora, it's complete. Speaking of other tools, we have some other tools like all legacy software, like Intensify and Tonality, but all those tools are inside Luminar, and we will continue to make sure that people who want to create a black and white shot or make the images more detailed and dramatic, they can do that in Luminar. With Photo Lima and Air Magic, those are still, we just want to make sure that they work, and people who just need some image editing automation, they can use it, but those products will not be heavily supported with new features or updates, mostly because of, again, Photo Lima is a pure automated no clicks required solution, so nothing to add there. All our brain work and resources are currently focused on Luminar, mostly because we need to improve on a number of things. We want to add a number of things, and we have this huge, big, vision around the product that we are super excited about, and that requires full dedication and devotion.
Yeah, well, that's and actually, to some extent, with Aurora, as you say, it's a kind of feature complete thing in and of itself. But I guess also in the longer run, it's also at risk of becoming sidelined by the hardware because, for example, like you were talking about the iPhone 11. I mean that with the computational photography in that you can do
Yeah,
HDR
a lot.
photography pretty much straight on your phone.
Yep, correct.
And that's not to say that there's not a place for Aurora, because obviously there is, as you say, for people who are heavily into using, bracketed photography, the traditional method. But to some extent, you can see that gradually being squeezed out as ever more cameras, offer that as an inbuilt option. So I mean, we had Beelight on a few weeks ago, and I asked them about a couple of their products, and in much the same way as you, they said that product is, we've decided basically to just let that product go because we need to, like you, they're a fairly small team. And like a lot of software houses are not big companies, they're not tens of hundreds of people, they're teams of 20 or 30.
Correct. Yeah.
And so Tanya said the same. We had to internally have a discussion about which products we can focus on and which ones we can say, okay, is that really worth pursuing?
Right.
Or is that, has that had its time? And a couple of their products, they said, right, we just said, no, we're going to let them go. We're going to sunset them because we could keep spending time on propping them up, or we could just say, look, that product has had its day, and our resources would be better spent on products which move us forward rather than supporting old products which realistically don't sell very much.
Yeah. And we have these discussions with other co-founders almost on weekly basis. It's always a decision on 1 hour spent on an important thing and 1 hour spent on a less important thing is the same hour, right? You're not getting more or less. So with us, it's always like we can do, like we also have a part of a business is about helping wedding studios in China be more efficient with some of our cloud technologies, and then we also want to do mobile stuff, and then we have so many ambitions and plans and ideas, but it's always about figuring out what makes sense in the long run, what is part of your vision and philosophy, and then saying no to many other things. So in our case, it's we at this point, when we have an idea or plan or whatever, we always start with a question: how will that impact Lumina 4 development and Lumina 4 and Lumina brand development in general? Yeah. And if that influences in a bad way, if that doesn't help, and no matter how much how passionate we are or how badly we want to launch that, we put it on hold. It's interesting. There's this new book about the the name is It Will Never Work, about the this will never work. So it's basically about Netflix, the launch of Netflix, and they have a thing over there called the Canada Principle. And the interesting thing is, when Netflix was just getting started, they were a US only company, and they always had this desire, ambition to go to Canada, and they always knew that even opening operations in Canada will easily bring them 10% boost in their revenues and market share and growth, which is always good for business. But then when they looked at how many resources that will require translating all the content into French as well, giving support and stuff like that, then they could clearly understand that could hurt the US business, that could hurt some of the other growth plans, and they for the first years they wanted to focus. So in our case, it's pretty much the same thing. We have a number of ideas and opportunities that can grow Skylum business immediately in a short period of time by 10-20%, like the next day. But then a number of things that we need to sacrifice and to do to get to that will actually, it's not worth the effort, because then we'll just sacrifice the future and the long-term growth of Luminar. And for us, we see the future of Skylum as a company of a product called Luminar. So that's simple as it is.
Yeah, very good. And you're right. And it doesn't really. I think that whether a company is big or small, that kind of resource management is important all the time. I'm sure even great big companies like Adobe have the same thing. They no doubt have meetings where somebody says, "I've got this great idea," and they go, "Yeah, that's fabulous, but how many resources is it going to take away from the next release of Creative Suite or whatever?" Everything has to be measured, and was it Steve Jobs or Johnny Ive? For every yes, there's 1,000 no's. And always, because no one can do everything. You just can't. You have to. You have to have some kind of focus, otherwise it all goes to hell.
And again, there's so many things. It's almost like it's unbelievable how many distractions are there, and it's not just new products or legacy products or stuff. It's like every single day we fight distractions, and the point is about just constantly reminding yourself that the focus is important. The focus is important, and we actually we can switch a little bit to the business side of things, not or the business side of a photography business, but the moment that understanding that we should focus, if not 100%, but 95% of our efforts in the team, we should focus on Luminar team around February, January last year, and we looked at and then when we looked at how many things that had changed positively, we have started growing much faster in terms of Luminar user base, and we are now able to provide a much better customer support, because people are just focused on that one product, and they still support, like even the customer support or customer retention of the product team, they still have other updates in their pipeline, but they understand that the main thing is Luminar, and that helps them to actually plan their day better, plan the future better. And it's so many advantages of being focused on something. We will definitely be, as Skylum, we will definitely be doing more things in the future, growing and testing different verticals and offering some more products and services for photographers. But we clearly understand that we need to, if not to number one in terms of a global photo enhancement platform, like you said, but we really want to be a very strong, top 2, top 3 player, not just on some certain markets as we are right now, but globally. We really want to be a tool of choice for creative professionals and add more value, and that requires a lot of focus, for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. Nothing, nothing great is easy, as they say.
Yep.
1% inspiration and 99% perspiration.
Practice. Yep. And a lot of failures, and a lot of lessons, and a lot of stress.
Yeah. There you go. Well, Alex, you've been on for an hour, and I know you said,
I babysit the kid. Yeah.
You're with your children, and as you've told us, you don't get to spend a huge amount of time at home. So I won't keep you. Any much longer. What I will say is,
will this episode be live before Photo Plus East in New York, which is next week, or?
This podcast should be probably be out by Tuesday.
Wow. Yeah. So if anyone from New York or around that area will listen to this, come see Luminar for at Photo Plus Expo.
Excellent. If you could give me
in New York.
Yep. Okay. I'll put that in the show notes. If you just pop that in the chat, and I'll put that in the show notes.
I will.
And well, obviously, I'm sure everybody knows where they can find all your stuff, but if you'd like to just shout it out for anybody who has been living under a rock for the last few years.
Well, it's Skylum, skylum.com, and I also suggest as a maybe even a starting point, Google Lumina 4 or YouTube Lumina 4, and look for some fresh videos from different photographers on sky replacement and portrait tools and AI structure. There are already a lot of photographers that that tried some early versions and stuff like that, and to discover and get some additional understanding of what I was talking about. It's good to see some videos, because seeing is definitely believing.
Oh,
and
yes.
There's some interesting things, and I'll make sure that we get you and your daughter an early version of
Lovely.
the software as well.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thanks.
Oh, and of course, they can follow you and Skylum on Twitter, can't they?
Yep, Twitter, Instagram. We have a quite active Facebook group. Well, page is bigger, but the group is it allows us to interact with customers more. So it's Skylum Photography on Facebook. There are about 30,000 people. Sort of I'd say closed, not gated, but closed community of photographers who use Luminar, and also people who want to get Luminar. There's a lot of discussion, images, some cool experience sharing, quite an active community of people who love photography. So if you're on Facebook, this is a good place to be as well.
Okay. Well, excellent. Thank you very much, Alex. That was very
Thanks
enlightening.
so much, Simon.
And thank you for giving up your precious time at home to come and speak to us. All right.
But the time, not just for me, but for everyone on this planet. Yeah, we should always remember that time is precious. Something that we can never buy back. Yeah,
that is true.
Was good talking to you, Simon, as well.
All right then, Alex. Thanks a lot, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Well, that was very interesting indeed. And thank you, Alex, for giving up your Sunday afternoon to come and talk to us. Right now, I think we're going to head over to John Nemo in the hardware store. He has a set of headphones to talk to us about. And then after that, I think I will just cruise across the news headlines and then wrap the show up. So, back in a minute.
We received an extraordinary set of full-size, over-ear, on-head headphones. They look like conventional headphones, the old-fashioned ones, but they are very, very modern and contemporary. The company is called Clear Audio, CLEERAUDIO, clearaudio.com. The headphone model is called the Flow 2, FLOW, and then II, capital II, the Roman numeral 2. Flow 2 wireless Bluetooth noise-canceling headphones. $280 in the U.S. These are premium headphones in many ways, and just keep listening to find out how that works. From Clear Audio. I had never heard of this company or this product before, but boy, have they changed the way I'm listening to music. These are 3-way headphones. Way number 1 is you plug it into your computer or other traditional auxiliary cable audio source, and they are what are called high-res headphones, meaning you hear the music exactly as it was meant to be heard, bright and crisp with so much presence using the cable. I just listened to some Fleetwood Mac music, and I just wanted to keep on listening for the rest of the day. It was so stunning and so dramatic. The second way and the third way are both wireless using Bluetooth. You connect them using Bluetooth, which just takes a couple of seconds. No cable involved. They're comfortable on your head, and it's marked right and left, easy to see. They're fairly substantial. They've got a nice cushy headband to protect your skull, and very comfortable. But once you're on Bluetooth, you have 2 ways to use them. As full noise canceling, and believe me, the external world is quiet. The music is fabulous, and the real outside world is non-existent. And then you press a small button on the left ear, and then you can hear what's going on around you. So it's the best of both for 3-way headphones, the Flow 2 wireless Bluetooth noise-canceling headphones. Now, the noise-canceling and the other feature that I'll tell you about in a second don't work the same way when you're plugged in than when you're wireless. Because when you're Bluetooth wireless, the left ear is actually a touchpad that you use to touch in certain ways to answer a call, to finish a call, to make it louder, to make it softer, to go to the next track or the previous track. This is all described in the manual. And for $280 US, you get your money's worth. They come in gray that we received for our evaluation unit and also slightly brighter silvery color. They both look very good. They fold up and they come with a terrific case. They have thought of everything at Clear Audio. I'm going to fold mine up, fold that up. Now it's nice and cozy. It can go right in the case. In addition, they provide the charging cable and also the aforementioned high-res audio cable and a pouch, in-flight adapter, quick start guide, and that's all you need. I've been listening to these exclusively since I've had them for a couple of weeks, and it looks like I'm going to be getting rid of a bunch of headphones to my nearest and dearest because the Clear Audio Flow 2 immediately became my favorite headphones, especially when there's a lot of noise and commotion going on. I go straight into noise canceling. Very effective noise canceling. Yet, when I need to hear something around me, and I don't want to be a complete moron in a room of people where I need to listen to music and also know what's going on, I can press a button and I can hear what is going on while the music continues to play with full quality. I really can't describe these accurately because they are so wonderful. There are a couple of reviews on the internet, brand new product. So do a search, a web search for Flow 2 wireless Bluetooth noise canceling headphones, CLEER, Clear Audio. They also have something called Google Assistant that I'm not familiar with. So if you use Google Assistant, you can also use that with another button that's on the left earpiece. Just 3 controls, on or off, Google Assistant on off, full noise canceling on and off. That's it. And it's all in the left ear where you have those controls. So read some reviews that other people have done and you will see that these are terrific headphones. Well done, Clear Audio. Let's go back and listen to some music. Back next week for more Nemo's Hardware Store.
And thank you for that, John. An interesting pair of Google Assistant Bluetooth headphones there. Link in the show notes. I was unable to find a price, so there's a link directly to Clear Audio's site, and I was unable to find them on Amazon at the moment. The previous version, the Flow, is available on Amazon, but I was unable to find the new Flow 2. So there you are. Well, as Alex was, very forthcoming and gave us a lot of information there, I'm not going to spend long on what's not a lot of news anyway. As I mentioned at the top of the show, Apple say half of all iPhones are now on iOS 13, only a month since release. I've got a link here called The Complete Guide to Using External Storage on iOS and iPad, which was sent in by Mac Jim. That's in the show notes. Interesting if you are interested in using external storage, particularly, I guess, with your iPad. The company Lunar Display have introduced a Mac to Mac mode, allowing you to use nearly any Mac as a secondary display. Interesting indeed. Link to Mac Rumors in the notes. Apparently this will allow you to use, possibly repurpose an older machine as a display. Apple TV is now available on Roku. There you go. Brings all your iTunes watching and listening, I believe, to the Roku box. I've read you have to have a newer Roku. Some of the older ones are not supported. But if you have a newer Roku and you don't have an Apple TV, get the Apple TV app and you can get some of the Apple TV experience for much less than the cost of an Apple TV. Apple have taken iPhoto round the back of the barn, haven't they? We've all known this was coming. iPhoto was 32-bit, was replaced by Photos quite some time ago, but there were a few diehards who refused to give up. Well, unfortunately, that day has come. If you want to use Catalina, iPhoto is not going to work anymore. In the past, I have mentioned a product called Growly Bird Photo from Growly Bird Software. This is a free product from Growly Bird on growlybird.com. Link in the notes, of course. If you're in the least bit interested, go follow the link and read what the developer has to say about it. They produce about 15 or 16 products, all of which are free. Very interesting selection. There's a very simple word processor, a simple spreadsheet, the photo program itself, and so on. Also, they make what is, I believe, Guy Serle's favourite backgammon game. There you go. Google has explained why it didn't release a 5G version of the Pixel 4. Unsurprisingly, because they don't think there's enough 5G out there. All those people saying, no 5G on the iPhone 11 will hurt it. Yahoo sucks to you. Google think the same as Apple. Not actually worth bothering with 5G just yet. Pebble smartwatch is getting a second life thanks to the Rebble Alliance. Apparently, there is a group of die-hard Pebble users keeping the Pebble alive. Quite an interesting little read over at The Verge. Surprising, really, although the Pebble was, of course, probably the first real smartwatch that was any use. There we go. The US military apparently are no longer going to use 8-inch floppy disks to coordinate their nuclear launchers. Well, all I can say for that is, isn't that about time? The last time I saw an 8-inch floppy disk was about 40 years ago when my brother used to use a CompuGraphic typesetting machine. Yes, about time they got rid of those, I think. Where on earth are they still getting 8-inch floppy disks from? That's what I want to know. Or did they have a huge bunker stuffed with them just in case? There we go. Adobe have committed to releasing Photoshop for iPad. Some features are not available at launch, apparently. And Affinity Tutorials on Twitter have tweeted that a lot of people testing the Photoshop for iPad say it is rudimentary and lacking in features. Something I think several of us have commented on in the past, saying, it's a big ask, and Photoshop for iPad, a lot of people have been going on about real Photoshop on the iPad, and I think quite a lot of us have predicted that, Photoshop for iPad is almost certainly not going to be what most of us would consider to be a full-blown Photoshop. Apparently, it should appear before the end of the year, according to Adobe, so I guess we'll find out more then. But as you know, there are several companies who've already beaten Adobe to that punch. Security and privacy news at Dougie, Andy J, our favourite digital forensics man, his favourite VPN service, Private Internet Access, are having a sale. Link in the show notes. You can save as much as 66% if you buy a year's service. This is a limited time offer, so hopefully this will still be extant when you get this. If you're interested, follow the link and take a look. I've got a couple of worth of chirps. The BBC News had a little video on how to get visitors onto your home Wi-Fi easily. Are you sick of being asked for the password to your Wi-Fi? Well, link to their little video, but here's a quick heads up. Basically, put your login details in a QR code, print it out, and put it where your guests can scan it. There we go. That's a too long did not read version of that one. The Twitter app is back on Mac as a Catalyst app. I've got it. I really have missed having a dedicated application for Twitter on the Mac, I have to admit. I mostly do flick through Twitter on my phone because it's easier, but yeah, using Twitter via the browser when you're on the Mac was horrible. So thank goodness we've finally got a standalone client again. And here is an announcement from Alistair in the Slack. If anyone had previously considered and discounted Backblaze as a backup option due to their 30-day file retention limit, you might be interested to know you can now opt to extend that to a year or even unlimited for additional costs. Extending the 1 year limit will cost you an extra $2 for each computer, and going to unlimited is the same $2 plus half a cent per gigabyte per month for anything which is over a year old, which means that works out at $5 per terabyte per month. There is a link in the show notes. It is an affiliate link, and if you use it, both the anyone who follows it and Alistair will get a free month. So there you go. If you are interested, help Alistair out. Use his affiliate link and get him a free month. That's probably about it. Time to announce the winners of the licenses for Beelight's new vector application Amadine. The names out of the hat were Alan Vickers, Dan Murphy, Bart Busschots, and Guy Serle. Who would have known it? But there you go. Well done, winners. If you sent in and didn't win, bad luck. I hope we'll be able to have, another giveaway in the near future, and you can enter again. There we go. I think I'll call that a show, to be honest. You can follow me on the Twitter as @Serenak, SERENAK. The show is at essentialapple.com. Do go over to the website and check out, because we do have articles there as well as the shows. Mac Jim has written a few recently. I've had a couple of guest submissions. So, do go over to the website and check it out. I don't normally do this, but I did have a look at the reviews for this show on iTunes or whatever it is now, Apple Music, whatever. It's a bit sad, people. If you listen to the show, pop over and give us a review. We haven't had a review in years. And if you're a listener to the Mac and Forth show, Carl had a fairly heartfelt plea saying, all us little podcasters with, not tens and thousands of listeners, but probably, several hundreds of listeners, we really do appreciate a review or feedback or an email. Anything really, we do. We do this because we like it and we hope that it entertains you. So, just for a change, I'm going to say, give us a review. Go on. What else? Mac Jim, of course, has his Essential Apple Flickr group, the family-friendly Flickr group for anybody who's interested in photography chatter. Follow the link in the show notes. And, of course, as I say, you can just follow the link in the show notes as well if you'd like to join the Slack room and get in there with the diehard chatter, or nonsense, or rubbish, whatever you'd like to call it. And I think I'll call that a show. So until next week, goodbye, everybody. You've been listening to the Essential Apple podcast, and I'd like to say, if you enjoy the show and would like to support us, feel free to go over to the website essentialapple.com, and you will find links to both Patreon and the Pinecast Tips Jar, where you can make a donation towards the costs of the show, or even if you're really keen, you could set up a recurring payment. And thank you very, very much to all the people who already do support us. We really do appreciate you very much indeed. This show is, of course, part of the My Mac podcasting network, where you can find a variety of other shows like the My Mac podcast with Guy and Gaz, the G-Men, Tech Fan with Tim and David, the Nintendo Club podcast, the geekiest show ever, the Three Geeky Ladies, Bart Busschots and his wonderful Let's Talk Apple, and possibly some more that I forgot. So why not go over to mymac.com, take a look at the available podcasts, and take a listen.
Hello and good evening. This is Gaz for the MyMac podcast. And we know you have your pick of high-quality downloadable audio content, and we appreciate that you choose ours.
Quite right, Ode Bean. This is Guy, and we're here to say that the MyMac podcast is the right choice to make. Intelligent, cultured, and downloaded by only the finest and most educated people.
Indeed. In fact, we restrict our delightful missives to only those best suited... Guy, I can't go on with this. Who are we kidding? The MyMac podcast is probably one of the most accessible shows there is.
Gaz, we're trying to up our reputation here.
Oh, shut it. Listen, folks, tired of tech podcasts that talk over your head and go on too long, taking themselves so seriously you'd think they were the ones making the product? Then you should listen to the mymac.com podcast. At least 3 good chuckles per segment.
If my math is right, that's about 10 laughs per show.
Right. Because 3 times 3 is 10. Sometimes I really wonder about you, Guy.
No need to wonder where to find the podcast. Just go to iTunes and search for MyMac. Subscribe and jump into the fun.
You know, we're part of the Stoplight Network, and there are a lot of important people there.
Well, we did say we hardly know anyone important. Though there was that time I was less than 30 feet away from the Woz, and I could have sworn we made eye contact.
Most likely, he was having stomach cramps.
Well, that would explain why he was doubled over at the time.
The mymac.com podcast. Enjoy it. Over a cuppa.
Listening to the Essential Apple Podcast. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you next time.